Hi, this is Tom Chittum, and I'm broadcasting from Puerto Rico as usual. And this video is a special video because it's not about current events or the war in Ukraine. It's a special to me because it's a comparison of the guys in the movie Dirty Dozen to the guys I was with in the White Duds in Vietnam. And I wanted to do it just for the historic record, and because it's interesting to compare the two. Because one was entirely fictional, and the other one, the White Duds, they were real. Oh, just as a side note here, during World War II, there was a group of American paratroopers called the Dirty Dozen, but they were called the Dirty Dozen not because they were criminals, they were ordinary GIs, they were paratroopers like I was, and they were Native Americans, and they claimed the tradition of theirs to prepare themselves to go into battle. They wouldn't take a bath or wash for X number of days or whatever, and that's why they call them the Dirty Dozen. But they were not, guys out of the stockade or drunks or anything like that, like the White Duds were, or worse, like the movie Dirty Dozen were. Okay, having that gotten out of the way, I will proceed. Let's see. But first, I need a toe. I mean, after all, I am a White Dud, you know. What the fuck did you expect? A comparison of the Dirty Dozen guys and the White Dud guys by Tom Chittum. Just like the movie Dirty Dozen, there were about a dozen of us hardcore White Duds, and I was one of them. All the movie guys were stockade inmates sentenced to death by hanging or to long sentences at hard labor for murder and other major crimes. All of them, okay? In the beginning, the only White Dud that was rumored to be a murderer, only one White Dud was rumored to be a murderer, and only two of us were ever sent to the stockade. Our crimes, the White Dud crimes, were numerous and varied, but mostly minor stuff, and only a few rumored murderers. The minor crimes included rioting, arson, drug dealing, needle freaking, not me, I never did any poppy Jews, most of them did, desertion, going AWOL, thefts, organized looting, brawling, assaulting superiors, and inflicting self-inflicted wounds to get out of combat. Those were our crimes as opposed to those of the movie Dirty Dozen. They were just a bunch of murderers. The scriptwriters didn't have much imagination. I could help them out there. Okay, now. The movie Dirty Dozen were mostly white guys with one Indian and one black guy. We White Duds were all white, but we did have a sort of alliance with the black guys. Okay, that might require a little explanation. You never really got invited into the White Duds. You were drafted. They were created when Colonel Dexter, the battalion commanding officer, took all the trash, all the duds out of the bum barracks that were white and marched us down to Charlie Company because that's where they needed people. There were about a dozen of us, and as soon as we got there, we weren't popular with the sergeants because we had terrible reputations because they all knew us as being drunks and brawlers and bums and thieves and loafers and blah, 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 and misfits and guys who couldn't adjust to the military. But anyway, in both cases, the point I'm trying to make out is that in the war world, they had these guys they didn't know what to do with, but there was a war coming along, so they knew how to do something with them. They just wanted to throw them out the gate. That's what they normally would have done with bums like us, just give us bad paper and throw us out the gate. But there was a war coming, and they knew there was going to be a manpower shortage, so they kept us in the Army. And it was the same thing, and in vague terms with these guys in the movie, they were going to shoot them, but what the heck? There's always a manpower shortage, so they figure they might as well get some mileage out of them by sort of sending them on a suicide mission, a twofer, if you will. Okay, let's see, what's next here? What's next year I gotta take a toke? Legal weed, by the way, so you don't get your panties in a twist. Just like the movie guys never refer to themselves as the Dirty Dozen, unquote, we white duds never call ourselves the White Duds. Never. That was something that others called us, mostly the people in the 3rd platoon where we wound up. It wasn't a compliment. Okay. Continuing, the Dirty Dozen were a separate unit. We white duds were mostly in the same platoon. The 3rd Platoon, Charlie Company, 2nd Battalion, 503rd Infantry, 173rd Airborne Brigade, 1965, okay? Just for the record. We white duds were some of the movie Dirty Dozen in that the brass intended to rid the army of both the Dirty Dozen, mostly by hanging, and us white duds by throwing us out the gate with bad paper. But with the war being cooked up, the brass in both instances decided to get what use they could out of both groups. That's an amazing similarity, but it makes perfect sense. Like the movie Dirty Dozen, we white duds had zero gang tattoos or handshakes or leaders or rituals or anything like that. It was completely disorganized. It was like they were like a bunch of anarchists. We all got along. We're all mostly friends because we'd all been in the bum bikes together, but we weren't in organized groups. The only thing we all like to do is go out and get drunk and usually get in a fight, which wasn't our fault. Very seldom. Most readers will compare the white duds to the movie guys, but I say turn that around. Use the white duds as the standards and compare the Dirty Dozen to them. After all, we white duds were real life, actual soldiers, and the Dirty Dozen guys were entirely fictional. The only thing they got from the World War was the name the Dirty Dozen that they borrowed from the Indian paratroopers. By Indians, I mean Native Americans. I mean not guys from Calcutta, okay? To me, it seems remarkable that the movie guys were very similar to us. The movie script writers get a big salute from me, and they and they do, because I've got a completely different perspective than most people who watch that movie, The Dirty Dozen, because I was actually in a military gang. We had this one guy, dumbass, the most mutinous of it all. He was an exact copy of Franco out of The Dirty Dozen. You could take that Franco and The Dirty Dozen and march him right off the set and into the 173rd Airborne Brigade, and nobody would notice any change whatsoever. He was the most aggressive misfit, couldn't adjust to military life. He wouldn't let anybody tell him to do. He was always getting in fights. He was always threatening officers. You name it, whatever. He threw his gun away. He deserted. He was a junkie. He rode guys in Saigon. He hijacked trucks. You name it. The guy's got more gongs than Audie Murphy. Reverse gongs, not real ones. And let's see. What else did I want to say about The Dirty Dozen? I haven't watched that movie in about, 10 years. I probably watched it a dozen times. At first blush, it looks like just another stupid popcorn movie, but it's really not, because people don't realize how accurate that was in many ways, in many respects, to the actual United States Army. Now they don't, because the United States Army, they don't want bad publicity. They don't want the public to know there's just guys like the white duds actually exist. And the veterans don't want people to know it either, because that will tarnish their image. But there are gangs in the Army. There's murders and looting and you name it. Okay, I just wanted to get that off my chest. One last toke for the road. Okay, airborne over and out. Catch you next time.